Alright, rules for operating. The number 6 SL brake equipment for diesel electric yard switching locomotive description pamphlet number 504615 June 1950. Alright, rules for operation. The following instructions are intended to cover the general way of the proper method of handling number 6 SL brake equipment and service that does not apply rigidly to all individual cases, conditions. Specific instructions are usually issued by the railroad to cover its own recommended practice in accordance with local operating conditions. The representative of the Western Air Brake Company will be glad to cooperate with the object in this view. Charging before starting the air compressor locomotive not being coupled to the train over the drain cocks of the reservoirs within the brake pipe end cocks at each end of the locomotive are dead. If the engine cut out, see if the following cut out. The cocks are open when the main reservoir cut out cock, brake cylinder cut out cocks, cut out cock under the air horn, the brake valve cut out, brake valve cock located on the side of the brake valve body, distributing valve cut out cock. Handle of the brake valve should be in the service position. 3 handles are not removable. These handles are not removable. Do not attempt to move the train or locomotive until the brake equipment is charged pressure required by company rules. Instruction manipulating the 6SL brake equipment are practically the same as those given the equipment, therefore they're not radically departure from present method of brake manipulation is required to get the desired results. Automatic brake valve. Running. When it's not in use, carry both brake valve handles in the running position service. To apply brake valves in service, to move the handle to the automatic brake valve service position, making required brake pipe reduction back to lap position, which is the one for holding all brakes applied. Release. Brake valve handle should be moved to the running position to release and recharge. Holding locomotive brake applied. If releasing it is desired to hold the locomotive brake applied after the train brake, relief of the handle of the holding instead of the running position. Relief of the locomotive brake by moving the handle of the running position leaves it there, graduating them off. If the circumstances require the shortest success movement between holding and running position. Emergency. To apply brakes in the emergency, move the handle to the automatic brake valve quickly to the emergency position. Leave it there until the train stops and danger is past. Independent brake. When using independent brake, only the handle of the automatic brake valve should be carried in running position. The independent application must be released by moving the independent brake valve into the running position. When all brakes are applied, automatically graduate off with this entirely release of the locomotive brake only with the press the independent brake valve handle with the running position. Red hand over the one air gauge will always show the pressure for the locomotive brake cylinder. This handle is watched in the brake manipulation. Pressing independent brake valve handle in the running position will quickly release the locomotive brake under all conditions. This brake valve has improved the self-lapping feature so that the locomotive brake can be controlled on and off with great flexibility. Double heading. When 2 locomotives are coupled together, the brake pipe hose must be coupled between the 2 locomotives. The cutout cocks open whether there are 2 or more locomotives in the train. Instructions already give them remain unchanged so far as the leading locomotive or the locomotive from which the brakes are being operated is concerned. On the second locomotive, the close of the brake valve with the 2-position cutout cock plate for the handle of both brake valves in the running position. Then the brakes in the second locomotive can be operated from the first locomotive, same as those of the train. But if the engine of the second locomotive finds it necessary, he can prevent it. Application of the brake on the second locomotive, the pressing the independent brake valve handle running position, also for the brake over the second level. Motive is applied. There is a danger of overheating with the tires. Drivers over the should slide. The brake can be released pressing independent brake valve handle in the running position. Reapply later if necessary by using independent brake valve handle in the usual way provided with the locomotive on the independent and automatic brake valve on the second locomotive are as before left in the running position after the operation. This does not in any way interfere with the brake on the second locomotive being afterwards released with the first locomotive, in which usual way with the pressure of the brake cylinder on the second locomotive should never be reduced however the absolutely necessary. Alright, a dead engine. When a locomotive is being hauled with a dead end in the train, play with the handle of the both valve of the running position, close with the brake valve, cut out cock, open the dead engine cock. Locomotive's brake will then operate like that of a car in a train. If for any reason it is desirable to keep the maximum braking power of such locomotive standard be accomplished, reducing adjustment of the safety valve and the distributing valve that can also be reduced at will by the independent brake valve. Lubrication type U brake cylinder. Dismantling the brake cylinder. Disconnect with remove the brake cylinder push rod to avoid personal injury may occur with a non-pressure head assembly not secured with a hollow rod collar. Examine the collar to determine that it will hold securely. Remove the piston. Release the spring non-pressure with the held with it completely. These parts must be transported to suitable shop with a reconditioning. The piston with a non-pressure head assembly must be handled with the locomotive and the wheel being transported from the locomotive so that the piston packing cup of the lubricator swab assembly and other parts will be effectively protected against the damage contact with any condition of the dirt. It will be responsible for the individual railroads provide the same adequate protection means. If the non-pressure head gasket is not broken in any condition, the provided tight seal do not remove it. If the remove of the gasket, clean and seal, will clean the brake cylinder and apply with a new gasket, assembling the cylinder through the cleaning of the brake cylinder by first use the dull brown scraper to remove all of the grease and dirt, but when you avoid improved solvent necessary for the soft gum to deposit for the remove of the rust spot, when wipe dry and clean with rags. When the cylinder is clean and left with the cleaner is prepared, immediately apply with a reconditioned piston with a non-pressure head assembly. The cylinder should be covered to protect dust and dirt. New lubrication should be applied with the cylinder just before cleaning and lubricating the piston is installed. Reconditioning of the piston non-pressure head assembly. After the assembly has been taken, suitable shop plate for the piston non-pressure head assembly and holding fixture which will hold the release spring partially compressed and produce seat is followed. Remove the hollow rod collar non-pressure head hollow rod felt packing seal spring seat with the release spring to be blow all dirt with a non-pressure head at the same time blow any of the low steer with the strain with the trainer can be removed inside with the head with the inspection shelf in place with the wire spring with the closing end with the spring with the strain parts or with the release from the removal if found to be good condition reinstall it otherwise the strainer must be replaced with clean one with the dirty strainer if otherwise in condition may be clean and reconditioned if necessary. C. Using a suitable file, break any of the sharp edge of the opening of the non-pressure head with a guide with a hollow rod. Examine the release spring. If the rust spots are found, clean them in the emery cloth and coat the spring with a rust preventive. Recondition hollow rod felt packing seal with a sacking of the solvent to dissolve the grease and the brush to remove the strip of the dirt with the damage worn with the spring seat with the cannot close with the firmly on the hollow rod. Apply a new one. So for the hollow rod felt when the packing seal with the oil specified below with a hanging up the drain, it's ready for use after oil ceases to drip. F. Clean the piston hollow rod, remove any rust, the rough surfaces use the emery cloth and necessary remove the packing using the wooden tool 1 inch wide with 332 inch to the equivalent round edge to prevent the damaged packing of the piston lubricator. Through clean packing with an improved solvent A with a remolding oil and grease dirt packaging cup should be carefully examined and renewed if brittle then any of the point are cut out otherwise defected. Remove clean piston lubricate is followed with removing the lubricator swing with the piston lubricator submerged with the tank with approved solvent in a few minutes then loosen the lubricator swab with the screw with the thin rounded edge blade. After the return of the solvent in the tank with time sufficient to dissolve the grease from the lubricating swab, brushing with the outer strip of the lubricator swab with the ordinary hand of brush will be aided with removing the old grease with the clean strip of the lubricator swab should be dried with the jet air. When lubricating swab with the piston lubricator with the damage worn out with the touch of the condition with it cannot be loose from the rave of the screw as to make a full contact again with the cylinder well the lubricator swab must be removed in good condition. Applied. Submerge. Clean lubricated with the tank of oil with the per specification below with the soak with the assembly with the oil for at least 10 minutes with all allow same with the drain from the 10 minutes the purpose of this operation saturate lubricating swab thereby preventing it absorbing oil with the brake cylinder lubricant reassemble the piston on pressure head after completing coating with the hollow rod with lubricating oil specification below with the place the piston hollow rod holding fixture with a wild dismantling, all release spring with a plate for the pack and seal with the assembly strip with the sleeve on the end of the hollow piston rod with the next plate for the spring seat within the felt packing seal on the release spring with the non-pressure head under the arranging of the parts. Use the locking mechanism with the whole fixture with the hole with the release spring partially comprised with the fastening with the whole rod collar. Assemble the piston with the two pistons to protect with the entire assembly with suitable cover the dirt and damage while being stored with the transported locomotive. Alright, brake cylinder assembly. Use a suitable brush. Coat the cylinder with sparingly with the brake cylinder. Lubricant current AAR specification M914. Place the non-pressure head gap in the correct position. Reset for the cylinder flange. Go the cylinder wall bearing surface of the packing cup filled with the gray screw. Swab retainer with the brake cylinder lubricant Immediately apply these parts with the cylinder with the tighten the non-pressure head bolt with apply with the connect with the push rods. Check the cylinder for loose supporting bolt of the nuts. If it's missing loose, then they must be renewed and tightened solidly. All flange lubricants. Lubricating oil specification: the oil employed with the choking lubricator swab with the piston hollow rod lubricator specified with the following paragraphs. Spur of the paraffin base oil preferred. Following specification: flash point 400 degrees Fahrenheit minimum, fire point 450 degrees Fahrenheit minimum, pour point 5 degrees Fahrenheit maximum, viscosity 100 degrees Fahrenheit 550 to 700 seconds, viscosity index 100 minutes. No fatty oil neutralization number 500 max. Brake valve: good grade graphite grease recommended used on only automatic automatic brake valve rotary valve when used conventional applied with assembling with the device, overhauling, repairs, etc. However, as graphite grease contained with a conventional lubricating valve that is assembled with a good grade of lubricating oil, current AAR specification MIL 912 should be in such cases whatever lubricant you would apply very sparingly. Equalizing weather should be remove the bushing through the cleaning of the cloth, saturated with a good grade lubricating, filled with the press of the meal with the oil with the peel, and then wipe oil out with a clean cloth. The piston ring should be immersed in clean cloth with solvent, blown out over the air, wipe dry with a clean cloth, with the remove of the clean piston, replace with the bushing, 3 dry with the proof of the oil placed in the groove. The ring moved around the distributing oil with the insert of the piston with the innermost portion of the piston, bushing, lubricating bushing sparingly. Move piston back and forth several times after the remove of the surplus oil with the outer edge of the bushing. If the brake valve cannot be conveniently removed with lubricating hard work, handle with the remedy with the closing fur for the brake valve, cut out cock of the main reservoir, cut out cock after the pressure has been blown off, remove the oil plug in, the valve body filling the oil hole with approved lubricating oil, then move the handle several few times between the release and emergency position to give the oil a chance for the work between the rotary valve and the seats. After the operation, again fill with the oil hole and replace the oil plug. Next, remove the cap and nut, and then from the rotary valve key, fill the oil hole, push down the key, fill with the oil hole again. After moving the handle a few times and replace with the cap nut. Regular inspection period: plugs 121 oil ports, independent brake valve slab flapping portion, leave the felt expander 128 should be removed with the passage filled with approved lubricating oil. Oil plug should then be securely replaced. After regular shopping interval of the brake valve should be dismantled, cleaned. The lubricated piston packing cup 130 should be lubricated with the brake cylinder lubricant. Moving parts lubricating oil. All valves and seats should be cleaned with an ensure proper seating with a complete independent brake valve unit with the remove of the pedestal, remove of the stud. 19. Taken in shop cleaning, lubricating cast can best be done. Our distributing valve: never remove the parts of the distributing valve while it's on the locomotive of the valve portion not working with properly. Need with the cleaning oil, the remove of the pipe of the bracket. Play with the valve portion with a good condition. All cleaning oil should be done with a bench and by a competent man with liability damage to the internal parts of the valve. As at least any of the part attempting to take the valve portion apart while it's still on the locomotive is almost sure of the result of a large percent of the valve being injured by careless handling with the dirt getting inside of the valve. If the repair of the necessary such valves should be returned with the OR shops from the purpose or facility during this work with the maintaining stream at their best. We can therefore do it more quickly, accurately, guarantee with more satisfaction than what is handled with the other shops, so they're well equipped. Furthermore, it's utmost important the manufacturer's standard to be departed from if the parts of the apparatus perfectly interchangeable. Proper specified cleaning period with the distributing valve is to be determined, particularly when the care is careful inspection and trial with the conditions sure of the distributing valve exposed to extreme weather, dirt, and so on. Cleaning oil and testing will require short intervals of these conditions more favorable, but under the most severe condition, intervals should be not longer than 6 months. The following inspection and methods of lubricating distributing valve: equalizing portion, equalizing slide valve with the graduating valve with the sheet with lubricating removed with lubricating oil, gum, and grease should be thoroughly removed with the valves and their seats before lubricating oil is applied. Before replacing equalizing piston, the piston rings should be immersed in cleaning solvent through and blown off of the air and wiped dry with a clean cloth. The piston brushing should be thoroughly clean, saturated with lubricating oil, filling the pore with the metal with the oil with the wiped off with a clean cloth before the clean piston replaced with the piston bushing. 3 drop of the lubricating oil must be placed in the groove of the ring moved around distributing oil with the insert of the piston and slide valve in the body, leaving them in the innermost position. Lubricating the piston brush sparingly. Move the piston back and forth several times after which remove the surplus oil from the outer edge of the brush. The fade for the graduating valve of the upper and lower fade for the equalizing valve of the equalizing valve. C for the upper portion of the bushing where equalizing valve spring bears should be lubricated with lubricating oil. Application portion of the ring 55 application valve piston 54 should be spring lubricated. 1 drop of lubricating oil with the ring moved around with the distributing oil with the bushing should be wiped in clean cloth and the saturated with the oil when then wiped with a clean cloth. The seats 56 should be wiped out with a clean cloth and ensure that the free of the oil of the grease before lubricating is applied. Before applying the piston to the application portion, clean the application cylinder piston, lubricate the walls of the cylinder. Piston ring use the same lubricating oil. Feed valve. Slide the valve face of the slide valve seat with the upper portion of the bushing should be glazed with the best grade of very fine pure dry graphite. Piston ring groove should be lubricated with a 2 drop of lubricating oil and ring moved into the distributed oil. Also place 3 drops of oil with the piston bushing. Hard testing locomotive brake. In preparing locomotive service and before making the following test, follow the careful rule of the operating given with the heading of the charging. Test number 1. When the system is fully charged, note whether the leak occurred with the service exhaust port with the automatic portion of the brake valve handle and running or holding or lap position. Leak at this point indicate the equalizing piston and discharge valve is leaking. If the leak is due to the form matter of the valve seat it can usually be displaced by closing the out of the cock of the brake valve, then making a heavy surface application, returning the handle with the running position. Heavy blow goes by exhaust fitting, usually remove the obstacle allowed with the equalizing valves to seat. Test number 2, break the brake valve with the gasket known as the good condition, making the 20-pound surface of the brake reduction from the pressure to be carried out. Close with the brake valve, cut out cock plate for the handle in the lap position, know whether there's a leakage at the rotary valve. If there will be indicated with this valve, the increase of the brake pipe pressure will cause the blow of the surface exhaust fitting will increase the equalizing reservoir gauge to the register, increase the pressure of the application chamber. The distributing valve will cause the increase of the brake cylinder pressure of the instrumental blow of the safety valve. Test number 4, make a partial application for the independent brake valve. Brake cylinder pressure increase up to the amount of the distributing valve of the safety valve is adjusted to indicate the leakage of the independent self-lapping unit in the valve of the brake cylinder pressure. Increase of the brake pipe pressure indicates leakage of the distributing valve, equalizing slide valve. Test number 4. After automatic surface application of the locomotive brake release of the air leaking from the application cylinder with the application cylinder pipe leak of the brake with the cylinder exhaust port with the distributing valve, only the locomotive brakes or apply indicates leaky exhaust valves. Should there be a blow of the exhaust port with the automatic portion of the brake valve, both handle with the running position, it may be leak path of the equalizing slide valve, path of the independent valve, the inlet valve, the leak graduating valve must maybe detected increase the brake cylinder pressure when they handle with the automatic portion of the brake valve with the lap position after the ordinary surface of the application provided with the reduction is not sufficient to give the equalization between pressures of the chamber, application chamber, and application cylinder. Note, for more than complete instruction pamphlet 405, instruction pamphlet 5048. Trouble and remedies, broken pipe. Alright, main reservoir pipes. If the main reservoir pipe breaks between the reservoir and the brake valve pedestal in some way, they cannot be repaired. Locomotive brake cannot be applied to either brake valve. Main reservoir brake branch of the main reservoir pipe, the distributing valve between the main reservoir pipe, cutout cock, plug main reservoir side over the brake and the clove of the branch pipe, cutout cock. Locomotive brake is inoperative. The train brakes can be operated in usual manner. Brake pipe. In the case of the brake pipe, branch to the distributing valve plug end of the leading to the brake pipe, the train brakes may be then operated with the usual manner. Locomotive brakes cannot be operated automatic brake valve. Locomotive brake can be operated independent brake valve the ordinary way, except for the independent brake valve must be depressed and running to least. If the break occurs between the branch pipe with the distributing valve of the branch for the automatic brake valve plug with the distributing valve side of the pipe with the possibility to apply with the release for the brake for the automatic brake valve, then may be applied with the release for the independent brake valve. Brake cylinder pipe. Broken brake cylinder pipe permits the escape of the main reservoir air. Brake cylinder is applied may call with the release for the one or more of the locomotive brake cylinder, depending on where the break occurs. The brake cannot be repaired. Close with the cutout cock with the pipe leading with the broken pipe. If the brakes occur next to the distributing valve, close the cutout cock with the main reservoir supply with the distributing valve application cylinder pipe. If the application cylinder pipe breaks with the plug of the pipe with the distributing valve side of the brake, the locomotive cannot be applied with the independent brake valve with the emergency maintaining feature of the law with the locomotive brake for the car. The locomotive brake can, however, be applied with the usual automatic brake valve and the release of the valve with the running position. Or distributing valve, release pipe with the relief of the pipe brake for the holding feature for the loss for the impossible. The key for the locomotive brake fully applied with the independent brake valve unless the opening with the distributing valve side of the brake is closed. It should not be done except on the as possibly switching circle wherever the independent brake valve is mostly necessary for the independent brake valve handle with running at all times. With the desired relief of the locomotive brake on road locomotive with the distributing valve side of the brake should be left open the brake control with the automatic brake valve until the repairs can be made. Alright, equalizing reservoir pipe. The key for the breakage of the equalizing reservoir pipe. The plug of the size of this place. Plug this pipe of the brake valve union as all plugs in brake pipe. So for the exhaust is applied with the brake so to move the handle automatic brake valve gradually toward the emergency position, making the desired pipe surface reduction gradually direct return of the handle gradually to lap position. Alright, these are pictures. Figure 2 show the main reservoir. We're going to cut the tape and we're going to do the